Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is simply called Discerning What is True. We're going to be going through the book called Psychology and Kabbalah tonight. Just recently did chapter 40, chapter 41. I'm going to be reading from this particular book. About two-thirds of the way. It's a long book. Hope that you glean some wisdom out of this. That's the whole idea. And to find out more something about who you are and why you're here. And chapter 41's chapter is called Persona. As the archetypes of the animus and anima seek out each other in sexual and psychological relationships, so the archetype of the ego in the form of a persona tries to match the demands of society and make a place for the individual. The persona, as said, means, quote, mask, end quote. And Jung saw this as a particular kind of archetype, where it often took on an external projection which was based upon an acquired personality, as will a actor. Kabbalistically, the persona is the appearance that Yesod puts on in order to protect the ego and relate to the outer world. Yes, it is. We developed that at probably sometime in our early childhood when we have some way trying to protect ourselves and not being so fragile with others who are trying to destroy us or hurt us. And so the young youth decides to create a persona. You see, Kabbalah, the persona's appearance. Okay, I already said that. Sorry. An example of this is the party where people label each other so that they can assess their place in the social order. The businessman, the artist, the doctor will present themselves as such, as will the farmer, factory worker, and scholar, as well as the lord, the general, or call girl. Each will dress or use some device or mode or speech to indicate what they are, despite the fact that they may all be wearing jeans and jerseys. This is the ego's way of preserving and protecting the Usada's identity. A persona is necessary because only a few individuals actually know who and what they are. The vast majority of people project an image of what they believe is them. Observe any gathering and you will constantly hear, so what do you do? Yeah, that's a major question that most men do ask. I don't know if it's even with women, but I know that men ask. That's how you introduce yourself. So what do you do? You tell them, I do so and so. So it's all that's related to work. It has very little to do with social engagement. It's all to do with their work, what they're doing, as men talk to each other. The answer is usually given in terms of professionals or status, such as a bottle washer, housewife, or prime minister. Even the unemployed or dropout will say they are an ex-machine minder or a poet. This image, although it might be projection, enables people to respond to each other according to the local custom, whether at the White House or at a meet at what we call a meet of Hell's Angels. However, the importance of the persona and the archetype is that it adopts should not be underestimated. People will go to enormous lengths in selecting the kind of clothes they wear and how they move and speak in order to communicate what role they think and feel they wish to project. As Oscar Wilde said, quote, anyone who does not judge by appearance is a fool, end quote. He was an expert on the persona, as many of his plays are comedies of manners where the characters are expected to fill this or that social role. However, it is interesting to note that his novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is about a handsome youth whose appearance never ages, while his hidden portrait takes on the ugliness of his odious life. It's a remarkable study of archetypal persona masking what is going on in the unconscious. Figure 43, persona. In this engraving, Martin Luther, the priest and scholar, is portrayed as a powerful warrior. During the Reformation wars of religion Each side projected a distorted persona of each other at the individual level. People put on a psychological mask to attract or repel others. These can be very crude or subtle in facial or body languages or the way we dressed. The Wall Street banker would not be without his corporate suit, but a millionaire might wear jeans and a t-shirt to show he is no longer care of what people thought. This is from a 16th century engraving. And so about with Phil, not with Phil, but with Martin Luther. In a right place, the persona performs an important task. It enables the individual to take up a role while remaining secure with himself. Or one can be a good engineer, postman, peasant, or queen without having to expose whatever may be going on at a deeper level. Moreover, the persona allows the individual to have different personalities in various circumstances, such as being a serious colleague at work, but a lighthearted companion in the cafe. This, though, can be confusing when one does not quite know which mask to wear with two friends from very different spheres of life at the same time. There are individuals, however, who always present the same face. They are usually either limited in their repertoire or repertoire of masks because they have not developed a wide and flexible Yasada ego, or they are so inwardly secure that they have no need for a facade. I don't know if anybody's done that. That's kind of interesting. I think that's kind of interesting. Maybe 1 in a million. I don't know. I should say that. But anyway, we get back to the book here. The former are often immature, and the latter exactly the reverse, in that they can cope with and accommodate most situations without losing the sense of themselves. These individuals are operating from temporal. In a relationship between men and women, the persona can be crucial for it. Will reveal the balance of the animus and anima factor of the outer pillars. Let us take an extreme example to illustrate the point. Most males, homosexuals, have a strong anima emphasis in their psyche, which gives them their tendencies towards the feminine side of the tree, which is often expressed in the persona. The same is true of women with a powerful animus, so that the force of the right hand pillar is predominant. This pillar trend, however, is sometimes compensated by the persona in that the homosexual can project an excessively masculine image and the lesbian an extraordinary feminine personality. This overcompensation could, of course, be sought putting on a acceptable persona to cover a male soul in a female body, or vice versa. In heterosexual relationships, the persona is important because men and women project their animus and anima through the Yasada image. The girl who always dresses like Alice in Wonderland is projecting her anima, trying to attract a man with the same problem or someone who can take care of her like her father. The man who only wears black leather and never washes or cuts his hair is using this persona to appeal to some girl with an equally wild animus. The same goes for men and women who like to be seen in the smartest restaurants or hang out in the backstreet cafes. The persona they present, or sophistication or toughness, is designed to attract their own type, and anyone who does not meet their image is outside the clan. That goes on basically starting when you're a teenager. A lot of that, even before that, some of that. Here we see the persona as a major factor in the creation of social order, and these are the Yasada foundations of a society. In some cases, the persona can reveal some deep lesion. I should think that should be lessened in the psyche. Yeah, some cases lesion in the psyche of the persona, or the person, I should say. For example, there is a particular phenomenon known as the Perletta, P-U-E-L-L-A, or the eternal girl, in quote, syndrome. In this situation, some event in early life, such as not forming a real relationship with the father, produces the distorted phenomenon of the, quote, darling doll, end quote, persona, which takes on the image of a pretty little thing in order to get the response the woman would have would have had as a child. In other words, or in any other case, it can be the very reverse where the persona adopts the role of a armored Amazon, so that no one can hurt such a well-protected ego. In the former, the feminine pillar predominates, and in the latter, the masculine. The dutiful daughter persona is yet another defense, but of greater complexity. Here, the relationship to the parents is an elaborate balance of love and hate, of need and resentment, held in by a mask of apparent filet goodness that can hide a frightening backlog of unreleased id nefesh energy. The situation can go on even after the parents are dead, because the super-ego idea may still hold Yesod in its control until the individual matures into the self of temporal. The quote misfit, end quote, is the type of persona that seeks a machism comfort in disaster, as it constantly draws misfortune upon itself. Here, the subconscious mortal impulses rise up as a powerful death-wish that uses the persona to destroy others as well as itself. Extreme cases can become psychopathic, as Yesod is cut off from the influence of temporal and the capacity to perceive reality. An example of this is the lunatic who said, quote, "The end of the world is nigh because of its corruption," end quote. He is projecting and predicting his sense of destruction upon others so that he does not have to face it. This trend is seen in many revolutionaries who want the world to be in their own image. Conversely, the persona of apparent success can also cover an imbalance. That is, the higher official who uses his position to oppress people may be compensating for a lack of ego-esteem, and the brilliant and witty personality often masks a profound impression about his private life. Here we see the tree reacting so as to retain some workable equilibrium. There are times when the persona meets an external need of a community, like the Copernicus president, who ruled a primitive republic for decades. The individual who embodies the fashion of the moment is usually the personification of that society's idea. Some ambitious people actually cultivate the persona that the fans want to see in their idol. But living up to such a mass projection has destroyed many talented individuals who have counter-projected the image in order to get to the top. When the image begins to pale and this popularity fades, they often turn into a burnout cases. They do not have enough maturity to survive without adulteration. This has happened to kings, generals, poets, and many celebrities who are no longer in the public eye. The phenomenon described above is called inflation, end quote. Here, the ego is so caught up in its own image that the persona becomes the predominant focus of the psyche. This means that nearly all of the psyche's activity is directed into the mass, which explains outwardly and away from the path of honesty between Yesod and temporal to form a bloated personality that at some point must burst. For instance, Napoleon said at the height of his career, quote, "I am the revolution," end quote. From that moment on, the French-based movement to bring Republican freedom to a feudal Europe started to become just another empire with Napoleon as emperor. After his dramatic fall, he was confined to a little island of St. Helena. Yeah, I remember that story. I remember that. That's at one time, St. Helena's off the African coast. And where he became incredibly petty. The temporal and Yesod connection had all but gone, leaving the shell of a once great man. On another level is the example of the woman who saw herself as a psychotherapist who solved everyone's problems but could not face her own. Moreover, her inflated persona could not conduct an ordinary social conversation without considering the motives behind every remark, which estranged many good friends. Such dominance by the persona can stem from a overreactive gender role, which can produce a Spanish inquisitor or a faulty precedent that can turn the persona into a, quote, jack of all trades, end quote, who does everything for everyone else but nothing for himself. Just as many, quote, so-called religious people suffer from inflated personas as do business tycoons and pop stars. Possession by an archetype working through the persona is not always a spectacular matter. Many people are run by the mass they have adopted and remain imprisoned by it all their lives. Consider the professional soldier who always obeys and finds himself executing people he knows are good. Carl Jung observed that there were many individuals who realized that the persona was only a mask. These were usually people in the middle life who had found that this role they had filled so well in the world was not what they wanted. The persona personality was, after all, just an image by which one communicates what we call thoughts, feelings, and actions to others. This realization creates a sense of emptiness in many who knew there must be more to life than being acknowledged as a top professional or a master craftsman or just an interesting personality. Seen Kabbalistically, that is, all their separate triads and paths were at their optimum level, not opium, sorry. They could manage life well and even increase their scope, but greatly proficiency or higher social status was not the answer. Worldly reputation no longer had meaning, you see, but they knew it to be a fragile bubble. Nothing seemed to move or excite such people anymore because time has shown that despite the changes in the world, there were always the same essential human problems that no external solution could solve. The real question was, why did they feel so empty? Was there a purpose to life and existence or not? The persona is useful in dealing with everyday life, but it could actually prevent inner growth by preoccupying the mind with mundane issues. Carl Jung noted that the people who actually asked the question, quote, who am I, end quote, were those individuals who wished to grow beyond the ego and become conscious of the self Kabbalistically. Become conscious of the self, period, I should say. Kabbalistically, this question precipitates a rise up in the path of honesty from Yesod of Teferel. However, such a process also stirs the dark side of the psyche, and it will seek to thwart any threat to its power and to perpetrate the mask of the persona. Bringing the light of consciousness into the unconscious inevitably evokes the archetypes of the shadow. So that's the conclusion of chapter 41 tonight. And thank you for being here again. Hope that you are gleaming some wisdom from what this particular book is about. This book is simply called Psychology and Kabbalah, or Kabbalah. Thank you again this evening. Hope you have a good evening. Wish you well rest and take care.